Hi, my name is Grace Kutzinger, and my topic is gender linguistics in transgender cases. The research question specifically that I will be discussing today is, do the gender linguistic patterns of someone who identifies as transgender help to confirm the transition, i.e., they use the linguistic patterns of the gender they transitioned to prior to transitioning, or do their linguistic patterns change post-transition? In order to discuss this topic, we must first define gender in gender linguistics. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, gender is defined as a subclass with a grammatical class, such as a noun, pronoun, adjective, or verb of a language that is partly arbitrary but also partly based on distinguishable characteristics, such as shape, social rank, manner of existence, or sex, and that determines agreement with a selection of other words or grammatical forms. This essentially means how someone is perceived and referred to in social situations and how it is not directly tied to their biologically assigned sex. Gender linguistics, also known as grammatical grammar, is described as the distinction between masculine and feminine social norms used to distinguish one as male or female. With gender linguistics, there are three main forms. The most specific form, gendered words, relates to the specifics of language like pronouns such as she, her, he, him, or they, them, and differences that occur with word forms or pronunciation. Certain languages, such as Sidamo, Japanese, and Native American dialects, use different words for the same object based on gender, like having a different word for milk or eye based on what the gender of the person speaking is. There are also words that have different endings to indicate which gender they refer to or belong to, like host or hostess, or actor and actress. After the rise of social movements like the women's rights movement, these kind of words have dissipated or been replaced to reduce the negative stigma attached to assigning a different word for the same profession based on gender. This can be seen in the change of fireman to firefighter or policeman to police officer. The second form, gendered speech, concerns things like biological structure, which concerns the difference in bodily structure in males and females. Males tend to have a lower tone due to throat construction and testosterone, where women have a higher pitched voice and use the full range of tonal notes compared to men. Gendered speech also concerns same-gendered socialization, where male groups tend to focus on hierarchical relationships versus the reciprocal-based relationships in female groups. The third form, which has less to do with the way someone speaks, is gendered interactions. This concerns the way someone is socialized based on gender, or how someone acts in a social setting based on their gender. In same-gendered male situations, it is more often a dominance battle as to who holds the floor. In cross-gendered situations, men tend to interrupt women more, holding the floor of speech longer than the opposite sex. So in order to talk about linguistics in transgender cases, we must first talk about what transgender means. The Oxford Dictionary defines the term transgender as denoting or relating to a person whose sense of personal identity and gender does not correspond with their birth sex. This essentially means people who prefer to go by or medically change themselves into the gender they better identify with. The social definition of transgender typically refers to calling someone by the pronouns that they prefer, like she, her, he, him, or they, them, even if they are not raised using these pronouns. Someone who is transgender might also change their hairstyle or clothing to closer resemble the gender they identify with, or take medication like testosterone or estrogen to change their body into one of the opposite gender. If they are able to afford it, people will also have surgeries to permanently change their body to have the genitalia of their new gender, or take away the parts of them that coincide with the previous gender. There has been slight research in the case of transgender people who identify as non-binary, those who do not directly identify as strictly a man or a woman, and how they use language to build and showcase their gender identity. Unfortunately, this does not fall under the umbrella of my research topic, and there was not much research that I was able to find that did. That being said, I think that this is a field of study that would highly be beneficial for our society. If such research finds that people identify as transgender use the gender linguistic patterns of the gender they transition into before their transition, it provides confirmation of their feelings and wants and helps support the reasoning for this transition. Although it is slowly becoming more accepted, it is still difficult for many people to accept one's decision to transition. Finding things such as these will be an indisputable fact, and that can help someone justify their shift. Research in this topic would also help the overall knowledge growth in this field, as transgender cases are something that scientists, biologists, and linguists still have much to learn about. These next two slides are my works cited, but thank you for joining me today.